bringing Gator Nation a different Gator great every episode.
This is Jabbar Gaffney. You're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey, I'm Earl Everett. You're not a Gator, you're Gator bait.
This is Bo Carroll.
Hey, I'm Rita Anthony.
This is Kiwan Ratliff, and you are listening to All for the Gators podcast.
This is Cedric Faison, a.k.a. C4.
This is Brandon James.
This is Jack Jackson. Go Gators.
Hi, this is your boy Jeremy Mincy, a.k.a. Mr. Mintz, and we were the All for the Gators podcast.
This is Ben Trooper. You listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey guys, this is Jarvis Moss. Go Gators.
You rocking with Lito Shepherd, and we're All for the Gators podcast, man. Top notch.
This is Chris Doring, and you're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
And now, your Gator alumni hosts, John, Andy, and Sid.
All righty then. No. I don't like it. I don't want to start like that.
I don't like it.
I don't like it, he says.
Sid, give me a little white snake.
A little white snake. Here I go again on my own. Or do you want to go like a deeper dive? Still the night, still the night, still the night.
Oh my God, we're off the rails this early.
None of that is in relation to our Gators podcast, All for the Gators, but
Air Nation in the house.
Why are you provoking him?
I don't know. It's fun.
I am the hairless member of Hair Nation.
Oh my God.
Speaking of rock bands, I went up to Minnesota to see Pearl Jam last weekend. And
oh, wow.
During that weekend, I get a text. I'm at a bar, right? Me and my wife are at a bar, of course. And I get a text from, I think it was Andy, right? It was a shocker. Andy sends us some stats on our show that he found online. So Andy's going to have to explain what happened there, because we all know Andy has no digital footprint. So how did this come to be?
Well, I do text. Forget that. Okay, I do text to get that out there. Make it sound like I don't send a text.
How did that list or article fall in your lap then?
All right. So my wife knows we do the podcast, obviously, and she's got a good friend of hers that they were talking at work, and somehow we're talking about podcasts. And she mentioned, Andy does a podcast with some friends of his, and, about the Gators. And so her friend went home, and her husband is a huge sports fan. We're friends with them and been out with them before, and he's a huge sports guy, just, sports to the core, knows everything. And so I guess he looked us up.
Okay.
And so his wife comes back to school the next day, and she's like, not only does he do a podcast, they're like big time. Like they got
big time,
big numbers. They're a popular podcast. They're like in top of some list that she mentioned. I didn't know what she was talking about. So I'm like, all right. So I consulted my friend Google. I'm like, what's going on here? So I did a quick search for top Gator podcasts. And link comes up, and I'm like, all right, let me click that one. It's like the top 20 you need to listen to or something like that. It's the first one I click on. Mm-hmm. So I start scrolling. I'm like, all right, I wonder if we're going to be on this list. And I get going. It didn't take me very long. Top 10. We were number 9. I'm like, holy crap.
Number 9. Wow. Watch out.
I'm like, there we are.
There we go.
So I sent it to you guys. I'm like, I got to send this. And I think I said, do you know this or something? And you didn't. So I was surprised.
Yeah, and there are literally hundreds of Gator podcasts out there. We haven't been doing this a year yet. We're coming up on a year.
We are.
Like next month. And this site, FeedSpot, is a very credible site that promotes podcasts. And it was the top 20 Gators podcasts you need to check out in 2023. Like, it was a serious deal.
Yep.
And I opened it up at the bar, and number 9. It's like, wow.
Did you have a drink?
I had a couple.
Got to toast that.
You got to toast to that one, Yeah. An excuse for another one, an excuse to go back for one more,
One of those.
Absolutely. So I think that's just an attestation. Is it an attestation?
Yeah, that is a word.
It's a testament to the quality of what we're doing.
I think that's the word you were looking for.
There we go, yes. You want me to sing some Testament too? I could do that. I'm diversified. I know more than Whitesnake, and I know a little Testament.
Old or new?
Only old.
Oh,
only
God.
old.
Don't start singing again.
In Hebrew.
Oh, God.
Come on, guys. We've had a ton of really awesome Gator greats telling us some really awesome behind-the-scenes details and stories. And
we've had an impressive roster of players come through. I mean, We have like entire personnel groups. We've got some of the best receivers the Gator Nation's ever had, some of the best corners, linemen.
That's right.
But we haven't any passers yet.
No quarterbacks yet.
We have not had a quarterback yet.
Sid's calling out his own show.
Hey, super producer.
Look at
Well,
that.
maybe we should do something about that.
Well, I think we got one today.
Do we now?
Let's hear it.
When you think of Gator greats, there's a lot of quarterbacks that come to mind, but today's Gator great may have had the biggest arm of them all. A true Gainesville native, where at Buchholz High, not only was he Gainesville Sun's Offensive Player of the Year his senior year in '95 and first team All-American on the football field, he hit over 400 with 12 knocks, had a .98 ERA on the baseball diamond as well. Wow. There, he set school records for homers in the season and RBIs in a career. And he chose to stay home and would go on to one of the most prolific passing careers ever at UF. When he graduated, he ranked 6th on the career passing yards list, 3rd in all-time touchdowns, just behind Danny and Shane, and he tied the then SEC record, 7 touchdowns in one game. Actually, just the first half. He'd go on to play in the NFL for the Falcons and Titans and minor league ball in the Rays organization. Gator Nation, it's my pleasure to present to you the man under center when we were there at UF. He's got a 96 SEC and national championship ring. He's a Florida Georgia Hall of Famer, 1999 team captain, over 7,100 passing yards, 62 touchdown passes, number 12 with the cannon, Mr. Doug Johnson.
All right.
Hello, fellas.
Our first quarterback. Really excited to have
It's
you.
our quarterback. That's the perfect one to start with.
That's right.
So before we get started, one of John's little shticks he likes to do in his intro with our Gator greats is he likes to go with their full birth certificate name, social security card name, and he didn't mention a middle name. Was his research not up to par, or do you not have a middle name?
Douglas Daniel Johnson Jr.
Oh, John, you got to redo the end now. Do it properly.
That's what it is. That's why my son is Trace, because he is Douglas Daniel Johnson III.
Oh.
Nice.
And my wife said, I don't want to say the word Doug again because it's really a blah first name.
Gator Nation, I give to you Douglas Daniel Johnson Jr. and the third.
No, his name's Trace, so that's where.
There we go. Yeah.
The only time he gets called that is in the classroom.
Gotcha.
Oh man, so glad we were able to. This is like the third time we've tried to hook up with you, Doug, and so glad to have you on. Now I got to ask you right off the bat: did you have the biggest arm ever at UF for a quarterback?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's okay. I mean, I wasn't, great in some other things, but yes, absolutely. I tell you who had a close second, but had no idea where it was going. Remember Timmy Olmstead?
I remember the name, but I don't remember too many plays.
Yeah.
Well, he was he was another number one quarterback in the country, just like Bobby Sablehouse. And Timmy came in the year after me, and he just, that just shows you these high rankings that these people place on high school football players. It doesn't mean anything. You have no idea when the lights come on what happens. So, but Timmy could throw it through a wall. He was a close second for sure. It's the first guy that I ever played with or against that probably had as strong or stronger was Michael Vick.
Right, in Atlanta. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And it always looks harder coming from the left side. It's like same in baseball, right? The guy that throws 93 from the left side looks like, someone from the right side throwing 99. So, but Mike could throw it.
He's the first guy I remember on the run throwing it 80 yards on a dot.
Yes, off platform, he was amazing.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers made a career of it, but before him, I can't remember anybody before Vic.
He used to flick it too. Yeah. I mean, it's like he didn't have a full windup. It would just flick his arm and it would go. It was crazy.
Right. It was too strong at some point where it's like he didn't know how to tone it down.
All right, let's take it back to Buchholz. John mentioned some crazy numbers in baseball as well as football. Was UF giving you an option to play baseball there too, or were you kind of expecting to be drafted and preferred that route?
So I was really always a baseball guy until the summer before my senior year at Buchholz. And up until then, my head coach there literally ran the ball 99% of the time. So we got a new head coach, a guy by the name of John Hunt, who really I owe a lot to of just, number one, changing the offense of being more pro style, but most importantly, between him and my actual head baseball coach, who was also my offensive coordinator, Bob Smith, both of them recommended me to go to start going to football camps the summer before my senior year. And this was back in the time where the only way to really get noticed, right, was either word of mouth or someone coming to a game seeing you. There was no social media, right? You couldn't post videos and all that stuff. So I attended the Bowden Academy, just showed up, and by the time it ended, I was the MVP of the camp. Guys like by the name of Tim Couch were there, and Timmy was
number one pick.
He was a little butthurt
that
I took that, and then so the great thing about the Bowden Academy was Florida State and Auburn's both of their staff were there, right? So Bobby had his staff, and Terry was a head coach at that point, and obviously he had his staff there. So I met Jimbo Fisher there. I really love Jimbo. Still have a relationship with Jimbo. Almost went to Auburn because of Jimbo, but obviously Gainesville guy. We all knew where I was going once I got that offer. But I did go to Florida State's camp, got an offer there the next week, and that's kind of what started everything. Had a great senior year, ended up losing in the Final Four. So that's kind of really, I was always a baseball guy playing football. I always thought that, and then I got drafted after my football offer, and I had to decide what I was going to do, right? But I told all the major league teams when I was doing all my workouts that I'm going to the University of Florida and I'm going to play football. So if you have any question, no matter what amount of money you throw at me, I'm not leaving the University of Florida. I'm going to play football. So, which kind of killed me in the draft order. The Yankees wanted to take me first round, but they weren't going to pay me first round money to then only see me 2 months out of the year. So, long story short, the Rays grabbed me in the second round.
And they did that with Drew Henson, right?
They did.
Yes, they did. Yep.
Out of Michigan.
Yep. So I met with Andy Lopez, who not one time ever showed interest in me while I was at Buchholz. And by the way, I hit 15 home runs my senior year, and I batted close to 600. Mm-hmm. What deterred me was when I met with Lopez, who I kind of thought was kind of a jackass to begin with when I got done with the interview. He literally thought I was a pitcher, and I was nothing of the sort. I was a position player. I was a third baseman. I could hit, I could rake, and that was what I did. And he, in our interview, was like, I just see you on the mound and this and that, which told me you had no idea who I was or what I was. So you're really just kind of a BS artist. So that interview basically deterred the entire thought of, hey, I'll just forego the Rays and play baseball at Florida while I play football. So that's what killed the deal, was Andy Lopez. So that's how it all evolved and started at UF.
Yikes.
Being a college athlete, I believe you can't get a signing bonus, but aren't there some other special rules or something you have to deal with?
So back then, you could be a professional in one sport and an amateur in the other. So once I signed my baseball contract, I then forfeited my football scholarship. So Major League Baseball picked up my scholarship at Florida. Wow. So technically at Florida, I was a walk-on my entire career there.
Oh, interesting.
So that's why when University of Florida calls me wanting money, I tell them, you owe me money.
So you mentioned a less than great experience with Coach Lopez, but let's talk about the old head ball coach.
Oh, he's awesome. Love it.
You're a Gainesville kid. Was he there at your game? Did he recruit you there in person? Tell us about that.
No. The Zucker recruited me, which he was unbelievable.
We hear a lot of that.
To be around and a recruiting. I mean, that's one of the things. Ron Zook could recruit. He was fantastic at the recruiting game. So when I went to Florida's camp after Florida State's camp, that was at the point which I totally respected, because at that point, all he saw me was, okay, this kid's got obviously his arm talent's off the chain, but he hasn't really had a season where he's put it together yet, because he throws 3 passes a game, right? Because all we did was run the option, right? So,
sure.
Coach is like, all right, yeah, let's have a good season. You're a Gator. So, I mean, that's really, what the recruiting message was to me my senior year. So, long story short, we had a good season and we put it together and threw a bunch of touchdowns, and it was good. So, but I respected him for that, not just, just going off of what they do now, which is nothing but I'm going to watch a kid at camp. I have no idea how he can actually play the game when, bullets are flying around him, and I'm just going to offer him because of a camp performance, which a lot of it's fake football. So, coach is like, you need to go out there and do it. Let me see it, put it together on the field. And, and I respected him for it.
And it's like a little icing on the cake that he has an extra scholarship because you're not taking
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah, I was a free date to the University of Florida.
You know, being a Gainesville native, Gators fan growing up, big Gators fan?
Not really. It's funny.
Really?
So I tell people this. It's kind of funny back then, in my opinion. Let me put it to you like this: the way I grew up, middle class. I didn't go to games. We didn't have that kind of deal to do that. University of Florida was just kind of here. Like it was. I didn't really appreciate it, right? I tell people this all the time. I didn't appreciate the University of Florida truly of how prestigious it is and how much of an honor it was to play here because I was so ingrained in winning when I started realizing what University of Florida football was and Coach Spurrier was here. It was like every year, it's like, well, we're supposed to win. Like, why are we all celebrating? Because that's what we do. And you live in Gainesville and the University of Florida's here. So it's kind of like in your backyard. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you kind of
desensitized.
You don't
to
appreciate it. Right, exactly. So I didn't really appreciate it until literally my rookie year in the league when we played out on the West Coast and we played San Diego and San Francisco and there were Gator clubs in both of the cities that were ginormous that I attended. And it was at that point I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, right? This is a pretty good, fraternity to be a part of, right? A prestigious university. And back then when you walk into a locker room, an NFL locker room, and everybody automatically hates you because, human beings hate winners. It's just a natural jealousy. But I didn't really grow up of like, oh, I can't wait to be a Gator and all that. When Coach called and we finally, I committed to him, it was like the next step. It was like, that's where I'm supposed to go. It's like, it's nothing like, it's weird to explain that there was no like celebration. It was funny. It was the same thing in baseball. I literally, when the Rays drafted me the draft day, they called my house. I picked the phone up. Dan Jennings said, Doug Johnson, Dan Jennings, general manager, Tampa Bay Rays. We just select you in the second round of Major League Baseball draft. Congratulations. And I said, okay, thank you. And I hung the phone up and I went back to sleep just as a normal 17, 18-year-old kid does because they're always tired. I woke up at noon and as I'm making a sandwich, I go, Mom, oh, by the way, earlier this morning, that was the Rays. They said they selected me in the second round of the baseball draft. Totally oblivious to what that meant. So that puts it in perspective of as I handled that was the same way as I handled, okay, I know I can play in all these other places. I just went to all the camps and I'm better than everybody here. Okay, I know I can play at Florida, so that's just the next step. So, but nowadays, it's such a unveiling of really nothing, in my opinion, but all these high school kids that want to, make this whole like show of it. So,
that's true.
Times have changed. Times have definitely changed.
Half of them flip anyway,
right? And half of them never play there.
Transfer.
So it's a total circus.
Well, like we said, we all kind of got there around the same time, 95. Gators get to the national championship that year. I know it was exciting for me as a freshman. Didn't do as well as we wanted to do, but did that help solidify kind of your decision to go there and add some excitement to you being on campus?
It didn't really because at that point I was so sold because of just all the years prior. I mean, we won the SEC every year, and that's just what we did. And the game was really nothing more than a shock of the outcome, but it had nothing to do with me saying yes or me thinking otherwise. So I do know that year, it was funny, that year after the game, there was all these rumors of Coach leaving, going to the NFL, like big rumors. And I remember getting called out of class and over the intercoms, like send Doug up to the whatever front office, blah, blah, blah. So I go up to the front office. And the first thing I'm thinking is like, what did I do? Right. So I'm trying to backtrack in my mind. Like, did I do anything wrong? Well, it was Coach on the phone going, nah, Dougie, just don't listen to all the media guys. I'm not going anywhere. And that was it. I was like, okay. He's like, all right, go back to class. And he hung the phone up like he normally does. Like not waiting for okay, but Coach, goodbye. He just hang up. Yeah. So it was that year where that year was, it was special, but obviously they wanted to get back. So the next year was obviously really cool to be a part of.
I remember that. They were actually pursuing him to go to Tampa Bay, and ultimately Tony Dungy got the job when he decided to stay in
Correct.
Gainesville.
That's right.
So you spoke to how Coach Lopez blew the opportunity to have a slugger like you, but prior to that, did you have like a preference long term, or were you going to kind of just play it out and see which opportunity, which door opened to you? Or when you were a high schooler, did you see yourself pitching? Pitching? Listen to me, I'm like Coach Lopez.
See, there you go. All right, I'm hanging up.
I blew it. I'm out. But did you see yourself when your mind's eye, running around a baseball diamond or slinging the ball into a football stadium, or were you going to try to be like Bo and Dion and do both?
At that point, I really didn't know. What I did know is I was better at baseball. It was hands down. I was, my agent, Mark Rogers, who's handled multiple dual guys, right? That was kind of his niche. He'll tell you I was made to play baseball. Like I was a baseball player, but I loved football. I loved stepping in a huddle, and I loved 10 other guys, looking at me, and I loved the 3rd and 7 and we got to get it. And I love playing on the road. I mean, it's a drug that you can't replace when that is gone. There's a void. So I knew that if there was any opportunity to play at the next level, that I was going to pursue it. It's just like anything else. Go pursue something you love, But yeah, I was a better, more gifted baseball player than I was playing football.
Talking about multi-sport athletes, Sid mentioned Bo and Dion. Why do you think there's never been a quarterback pitcher or quarterback shortstop that's played in both pro leagues?
Can't do it.
No?
Not to play behind center. There's too much to it. There's too much
work.
There's so much involved with playing that position at that level, at a high level. That it just doesn't work. You can get away with it at maybe a lower tier college and do both, right? But in one of the things that kind of hindered me looking at it now, and I'm never going to regret the decision of doing both. I think it's just one of those where I don't know too many people who would have, turned it down. I get to go drive an hour and a half from where I'm playing football as a starter, and I'm going to go play professional baseball. Like, it just all lined up, so well. But I do know that my time away from literally when I took finals, early, my professors gave them to me early because at the day after the spring game, I was gone. I literally was gone from Gainesville, and I didn't show back up until 2 weeks before the season.
How did your teammates feel about that?
Well, I mean, probably felt a huge void, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I was, I like I said, I know Coach tried to talk me out of it. I know he understood what it was probably not conducive for me being the best I could have been. Did it hinder me to get the best out of me playing behind center at Florida? Absolutely. But because literally I was showing up 2 weeks before two-a-days.
Right.
So, that's tough. I mean, there's a bunch of catch up and there's a bunch of, I got not only that, but I mean, wherever I was playing, I was literally throwing a football during the day, trying to not lose that stroke.
Sure.
Right. Because throwing a baseball and throwing a football are totally different unless you're a pitcher and you're just all you want to do is throw change-ups, because that's what throwing a football is when you're throwing a baseball. It has a bunch of run on it if you don't get on top of the seams. Well, you got to keep working the thumb down throwing a football. So I was working that, which obviously hindered probably playing baseball. So it's just there's no way you can do both when playing behind center. You want to be a DB or a receiver and then go play outfield. So yes, who cares, right? You're just being an athlete,
right?
You're not you're not throwing anything on the football field, so you're not messing up your throwing motion on the baseball field. Well, obviously you've got two throwing motions, two strokes on both, for both professions. So that's why. And then the mental part, and then the leadership part, and the camaraderie part, and the timing part. I mean, there's just too much There's too much that goes into playing behind center. That's why it's the toughest position in all professional sports to play, and hands down, not even close.
Oh, fair enough.
That makes sense. So in '96, you're a true freshman, but Wuerffel's there as a senior, and we all know he was playing great. Noah was there as a junior. I think you were the only true freshman in that class not to redshirt. Why didn't you redshirt that year?
Well, Coach wanted me. He knew he was going to play me a lot because he knew I was going to be the guy the next year. So I was actually the two. It was a funny story. We played Florida State. In my true freshman year, I was so skinny. I mean, I was 6'3" and probably $190, right? And I got to play a bunch that year because Coach wanted me to get in and get the feel and all this stuff. And I remember when we played Florida State the first time, and Danny's just killed, right? Just hammered. Oh, yeah. Well, he comes off right before halftime. He looks at me and goes, "You need to start getting ready. I don't know if I'm going to make it." Oof. And I'm thinking, "Come on, bro. You got this in you. You got this." But yeah, that was the whole purpose. I mean, he wanted me to not have my first time I stepped out there in real situations to be my first time. So that's why the non-red shirt.
That seemed to work out. You get into 7 games that season, Sugar Bowl too. But what exactly was that transition like, though? It wasn't very long from when you were on a high school field to playing in SEC and Sugar Bowl games and stuff. What was that like?
Very surreal. Yeah. Very surreal. Very surreal. And the mop-up stuff that I did, it wasn't too crazy. I mean, it was like that's not the vibe you get doing that is not crazy. The vibe you get when you step out game one at home as the guy, I mean, literally, you can't explain the adrenaline. As a 19-year-old, it's really pretty special. But I got to kind of ease into that a little bit. I think playing a little bit my true freshman year helped me. But those weren't the live bullets my true freshman year. The live bullets start when the team on the other side still thinks they can win.
Right.
Well, Riedel was on with us. He spoke about Coach Spurrier building confidence in his young guys, giving them like a little bit and then a little bit more that they can handle, and how that philosophy sets players up for success, right, rather than failure, the young guys. Do you feel that's how he approached it with you in your development?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Maybe he did that with the receivers. There was no easing into anything when it came to our position.
Quarterbacks got it a little different.
You either got it done or, you got to realize, he was our head coach, but he was also our offensive coordinator, and he was also our quarterback coach. Mm-hmm. There was no filter. Yeah, there was no, you were getting truth serum right out the mouth, and knowing everyone knows him, he doesn't have a filter, right? He's to the point, which I love about him, right? Was it tough? Yeah. So what, right? So what? So that's why I was able to walk in, as an undrafted free agent in Atlanta and look at Dan Reeves and tell him I'm better than anybody you got here, and proved it, and was starting by the end of the year. So the Spurrier rubbed off on me, right? So, but no, there was no easing into it. There was no worry about feelings, and there was no worry about losing confidence. There was none of that. You better bring. It's like a saying in my household. You better bring your confidence to the game. I tell my son that now. Don't look for others for confidence. Bring your confidence to the game. So, Coach had high expectations of the position. It had to perform, right? But with that being said, he did give you some grace when guys didn't block or receivers ran wrong routes. So, and you always had this in your back pocket at all games. If all you had to say as a quarterback, when you knew either you missed a guy or you did something wrong, ball came out wrong, if you just said slipsies, you only had one of them in the game. But if you said slipsies, he'd go, all right, slipsies, that's okay. Because he had a lot of slipsies when he was a quarterback. So he appreciated that. He could relate to it. If you told a D coordinator that was a head coach now, and you said slipsies, they wouldn't understand it, right? They would say, "What the hell is that?" Well, coach would recognize the word slipsies, and he'd give you grace, one card a game on that, so you could pull that one out.
All right, so week 4 in the swamp, you get your first touchdown pass to Jamie Richardson, a 19-yarder. How did that feel? That had to be feeling good.
That was my true freshman year, right? That was against Kentucky. Threw the ball as hard as I could, and I have no idea how Jamie caught it. That's how that felt.
Just rocket ball?
Just an absolute rocket. Yeah, and that's, Jamie Richardson. I'd love to know where Jamie Richardson is right now, because he was an unrealized talent at UF that, for lack of better words, off the field events didn't allow him to play. But man, what a talent that guy was to be missed by Florida fans and to not see how good he would have been, for sure.
Well, you talk about that feeling of throwing that first touchdown pass. What's better, hitting a home run or throwing a touchdown?
Ooh. Oh, not even a question. Throwing a touchdown.
Oh,
definitely.
No hesitation. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
Clearly, you made the right choice. You are the quarterback.
Yes. Not even a question. Yeah. There's nothing like letting one go, because this is what happens majority of the time. Like, most people don't understand, because they just follow the ball, right? They never watch the quarterback after he lets it go. You never see it completed. Like, right when you let it go, you know it's there. And when you're good and you've done it 1,000 times, and you don't need to see it. Like, and you're just waiting for the crowd to either erupt.
You listen for the response. Yep.
Or the crowd to get really silent. Like, it's one or the other, and you know it. So that is to get hit, to let one go, to get hit in the mouth, not see it, listen to the crowd, and to get up and give little jab to whoever just hit you in the mouth. There's nothing better. There's nothing better.
Wow. Did watching and playing with Danny that first year, did that make you a better quarterback? Talk about, his effect on you as a young quarterback.
I tell people this all the time. I think Danny is definitely one of the toughest. I prided myself on being tough. Like, if you ask anybody that played with me, they're not going to talk about an arm strength. They're going to talk about Doug would get hit in the mouth and would just laugh at it. Like, I prided myself in that. But I learned that trait watching Danny get absolutely manhandled my true freshman year, his senior year. He took beatings and would keep getting up and up and keep getting up and letting it go and keep getting up. I mean, he really set the expectations and the reality of the position, because our philosophy at Florida was not, okay, let's recognize when you're hot and get it out early, blah, 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 like it is in the NFL, right? Everybody hears hot route. Well, that means they're bringing one more than you have to block. Where at Florida, we want them to bring one more than we can block, because that means someone is one-on-one or one-on-none. Definitely. Does that make sense? So we understood the guy coming free was our responsibility, and we had to get it out before he got to us. We had to drift away before he got to us. We had to slide the protection to him, and we knew somebody was coming free, but we had to get the ball out before he got to us. So that was a lot of our philosophy. That's one reason why Patrick Ramsey probably can't, spell cat right now, because he played for Coach in Washington, and they didn't have a hot system, right? It's two totally different games, NFL, than what we used to do at Florida. Yeah, so Danny showed what that offense was going to be about, and what I had to prepare for, the next year.
Yeah, that Florida State game you mentioned, I remember that one. He took an absolute beating that game. I'm amazed he got through it. Yes. I mean, that was
yes,
which made the national championship game that much sweeter. But we'll talk about that later. So as we talked about, we were there with you there, won the SEC title that year, and then of course the national championship we just talked about. Talk to us a little bit about some of your memories of those, and then also, did you kind of think it was going to happen every year based on that early success?
You kind of get first of all, the SEC and national championship, super special. Once again, one of those experiences that probably no one truly appreciates at the time, right? You kind of appreciate it later down the road. Absolutely, that we expected to keep it going, right? That's the expectations every year of Florida. But I think we're getting into the time too where the other teams are starting to kind of figure us out a little bit, right? And at the end of the day, it's always one. It's like one loss will get you out of the dance back then.
It's true.
So,
oh yeah, especially back then.
And it, the next year we lose to, lose to two teams that we shouldn't have lost to. Now the at LSU deal, that was that game was it was just a disaster. I mean, I lost my left and right tackle the first three series of the game. It's, when Zach Pillar and Mo Collins go out and you've got LSU defense, which was one of the best in the country at that year at their place, it's pretty tough sledding.
Yes.
But the Georgia loss my sophomore year was really the flop. It's funny. It's like we beat Tennessee and Florida State, but we lose to LSU, which we probably were not the better team at that moment at LSU that year. At that game that night, with the personnel, but the flop against Georgia, which was a total flop. That's really, you look at those games like, golly, man, just that we win that game and we are exactly where we want to be, right? We're in the SEC championship. So, it's just, you play in the best conference, you play against the best teams. Back then, we're not only were in the SEC, but we're playing Florida State as our
top team every year. Yep.
Top team with non-SEC team. So we go to good bowl games, but obviously that's not the expectations. My senior year was probably the biggest letdown because, we get to the SEC game and my arm just absolutely is done. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't practice all week. We tried to shoot it up with Novocaine before the game in the SEC, and just, not to get us all the way there and not to be able to play was probably the most gut-wrenching experience in sports for me. Because I didn't go to baseball that summer. I committed to football. I was all in and got to the spot where I wanted to be. And, just injury just didn't allow me to play in that game. Played all year, got us there, and just didn't get to play. And so it was, but that's sports. That's what teaches you life, how to pick yourself up. So
we definitely missed you there in that game. I remember we scored like in the first 2 minutes, and then that was the end of the scoring without you. But
yeah.
But before we get to your senior year, let's go back the next season after the championship. You mentioned already Noah Brandeis is there. Jesse Palmer comes in. Obviously, you're the main man, starting 7 games, getting in 9. But what was the competition like in the quarterback room and winning that position after Danny moves on and all the success he had before, the weight of that coming in for the new guy?
Yeah, so obviously I solidified myself at the orange and blue game before I headed out to wherever I was, Princeton, West Virginia, to go play in the Appy League. Came back, and the LSU law, we're just rolling, like leading the Heisman, ballots at that point. Number one ranked, this and that, rolling. Like I don't know how many touchdowns we had that I threw going into LSU. Offense is playing well, our team's playing well, and the LSU flop. And then the whole, I got suspended after that game because it was, I went out on a Thursday night that I'd been going out every night, for every game. But, things come out when you lose. That's just, it's kind of like you learn that as an adult. Things are brushed, the mistakes are brushed under the rug when things are going good, just as when you watch tape, when you win. But when you lose, all the mistakes are highlighted. So that's kind of it was a little bit of the unraveling of my sophomore year. And, but, I was able to come back, finish strong. But yeah, we had a good room. Love Noah. He's still my buddy today. Jesse came in, he was highly ranked in the Canadian world, and we had Rex the next year. So it's, Our quarterback room is pretty solid. I mean, if you think about myself and Jesse and Rex, we all had pretty long careers in NFL, and
sure did.
And so it was definitely a solid room.
Let's talk about week 2 that year, Central Michigan. You throw those 7 touchdown passes in the first half. You tie an NCAA record, and the 7 for the game ties SEC and UF records with Terry Dean. How do you remember that game? Do you remember all the receivers that caught those 7 touchdowns?
I remember some of them. I don't really remember all of them. But it's funny that, that game, and then I had a game at Vandy, I don't know what year it was, where I was 2 yards away from breaking the school record for yards in a game, and coach pulled me out. I think there was like 8 minutes left to go in the fourth, and he goes, "All right."
460 yards?
Yeah, he's like, "All right, you can get that record. You can get that record next year." And what's really funny is I missed John Capel on a post. I overthrew him, which, you ask, how could you overthrow John Capel on a post, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So coach looked at me when we were watching tape, and he goes, "Nah, wouldn't overthrow him. You had the record." So,
man,
he loved to get those jabs. But he did the same thing with the 7 touchdowns. Like, nah, you get that record next year.
You go into the '99 season, named a team captain.
Yes.
What did that mean to you?
Being a captain obviously it's definitely an honor. I don't know how to explain it, but when you get named by your guys as the guy they're looking at, and they just they officially put that designation on you. That's something that's special. But as a guy behind center, you already feel that way, right? I mean, I felt like I was the captain to begin with. I'm telling everybody what to do every play.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
Especially my receivers. Most of my receivers, every time we broke the huddle, was what I got. So I'm telling everybody what to do. So, but to officially be named that is, it's super cool. It goes down, it's always in the locker room. You're always a part of that legacy. So, yeah, great honor.
Well, clearly you wore the captainship well. You're named to the O'Brien and Unitas Golden Arm Award watch list in the preseason of '99, and you don't disappoint. You had a QB rating of 132.41, second best in the SEC. Throw another 20 touchdowns. So what were your expectations going into that season?
Well, our expectations every year is to get the SEC and win the SEC. So that's why I say going into it, I look at the first Alabama game we played, probably one of the better games I ever played at Florida, to end up losing. Was hard. I mean, look at that game. It's just so many what ifs, one thing we do different, we win that game. But we still got there to play them again, and that's why, I felt like we would have won that game if I'm healthy. I just really believe that. But obviously that didn't happen, and but I was able to battle back and get healthy enough to play in the bowl game, and that was kind of the bitter end for me at Florida, where we lose and on a last minute field goal to Michigan State.
Yeah,
that was that. You always kind of want to go out on a good note, as a senior, and that was a tough one to swallow. It was the final ending of the SEC game where you don't, you're not able to play, right? You get to where your goal is and you can't play, and then you battle back and you play a really good game against Michigan State, lose on literally a last second field goal. They won it, as a walk off. So, but sometimes it just doesn't, the storybook ending doesn't end the way you want it. You just gotta keep moving on and grinding. So, but I think that still had a lot to do with my success at the next level and learning how to turn the page. I think that's one thing playing baseball teaches you, is it's such a game of failure that the two complement one another. I'm always promoting parents to tell their kids to try to play more than one sport, because I think, like for baseball, football, for me, just the game of baseball and the game of failure and learning how to turn the page and sulk on stuff and focus, it helped me with football, right, to turn the page. So, yeah, so I think the two went hand in hand and helped me for both sides.
All the rotating that you had to do with some of the other quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
If the transfer portal was around back then, do you think you would have thought about it?
No, because I was raised to the fact that if you start something, you finish it, right? I mean,
Sure.
A commitment means something, right? If coach felt like that rotating was going to give us the best chance of winning, then to me, that was my fault that happened, right? I created that atmosphere. but that's just how I was raised. And I know these days kids just they don't get their way, they take their ball and go home. But that's not how my son's raised. That's not how we do it in my household. And that's how I was raised. I was raised that if there's a commitment given, then you need to finish your commitment. Listen, I love Coach. We're kind of like the same. Jerry always says, you two are just so alike. Like you two are a lot alike. And we're two really, really competitive guys and fiery guys. That's probably one of my detriments, that I was I didn't stay even. That, I try to teach my son that, to stay even and to stay level, to stay neutral. It's kind of a saying in our household, to stay neutral. I didn't do that well. So that's one thing I wish I would have worked on or did a little bit better in my career at Florida. But I loved him. I still talk to him. We just shot a commercial for my charity that I've been doing for 20 years to the Boys and Girls Club here, that we just raised about $175,000 this year for. So
wow, very nice.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. So he and I just shot the commercial. And I mean, I love Coach. He's literally one of my favorite human beings. He's so unique. They don't make them like him. And I was so blessed to be able to play for him. And he's still here, and he's in Gainesville, and I can see him at any point I want to see him. And when you're going through the chaos, which that's really what that place is at that point in time for an 18, 19-year-old, it's really chaotic. It really is. And then to have that expectation to go perform at another sport at a high level because you just got drafted high. And so there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot thrown on me. But when the chaos ends and the smoke clears, and I look at it now as a 40, soon to be 46-year-old, it was awesome, and I wouldn't have traded it. And Coach is just, I wouldn't have changed anything. I'd sign up for it today to do it again.
That's a great perspective, though. I mean, You don't hear that these days. The loyalty. You just don't.
It is.
I think that's what's
no
missing.
doubt.
That's what's missing now.
No doubt.
That you guys had back then.
He treated me like a child, and he coached me hard, and he was my dad. I mean, that's just how it was. So, and I'm a better human for it.
It's so great to hear that because I remember being in the stands and telling Andy that just getting angry for Coach to be rotating. I mean, one drive after another, just rotating quarterbacks. And I'm thinking in my head, as a football fan, as a Gator fan, how is a quarterback going to get any momentum going if he's being yanked, every other drive?
Well, did I like that part of it? No quarterback likes that part of it, right? I mean, but he understands that. He knows that. He wouldn't like it if he was the player, right? But once again,
right.
That fault goes on me to not solidify as I need to be in the game every play to give us the best chance to win. So that's on me, not on him.
Well said. Yeah, well said. So the other day I was watching YouTube, and it was the Tennessee game back in '97, and you threw some pretty balls in that game, hit Quez a couple times for scores. Did you have a favorite receiver at your time at UF?
Oh, man, I had some great.
We know you had great ones, but did you have one maybe you felt more comfortable with, more on the same page?
Easier to throw to than others?
Man, so I think it depended on the year, right? Quezzy was so good. He was so good. He wasn't that tall, but he played long. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He didn't look that fast, but he was. He was a strider. He understood leverage. He was tough. He was a great teammate. Like, he was checked the boxes, right? Always positive. I think my true freshman year, I tell people this all the time, Ike Hilliard is an awesome human being. Ike took me under his wing my freshman year. He included me where he didn't have to. I mean, because Ike was on top of the world in '96. Like, he was the guy. You ask anybody back then, Ike was probably one of the most feared receivers in all of college football. But he didn't act that way, right? He was just a gentle, just compassionate, graceful, intelligent, just a good dude. He helped me my true freshman year. You know, you go into my junior year, Travis McGriff was the guy that I knew. I could tell by his tendencies, the pre-break of when he was coming out of his break. He ran every route perfect. He was precise. He never ran one short. He never ran one too deep. He understood where to put his body in body positions to create leverage. He saw the field as a quarterback would. I wouldn't even have to give him signals, and he understood what we needed to do. It was just that kind of chemistry, probably Travis my junior year. And of course, my senior year, I had two really good ones with Travis Taylor and Darrell Jackson, just phenomenal. Both did different things in a different way. Both went on and had really good careers in NFL.
Sure.
So I think it just it was the year that really determined the guy.
Okay.
You sure had no shortage of talent to choose from there. That's quite a stable of receivers you speak of.
Right.
So,
and keep in mind, I'm leaving off the Reshae Caldwells and the Jabbar Gaffneys and the Taylor Jacobs.
Yeah.
Jamie Richardson, my sophomore year, would have been, I'm just telling you, as good as any of them. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it. And Fred Taylor would have won the Heisman Trophy if he had played anywhere else.
That's true.
He is by far, in my opinion, the best, the most talented running back to play at the University of Florida. And I found this out and solidified that opinion after I left Florida. That's what I thought when I was at Florida. When I left Florida and was in the league, Fred was in Jacksonville, and I got to talk to other teammates and other defensive guys and other defensive coordinators as I went around the league. It was by far, every one of them said, Fred Taylor is the most talented running back in the NFL. Every one of them said. Jamal Anderson told me that my rookie year in Atlanta, and Jamal's ego couldn't fit in a room. And he looked at me. He goes, I wish I was half the running back and had half the talent.
He ran for 2,000, didn't he?
Did the dirty bird.
No, it was like 1,800 the year they went to the Super Bowl, but he was good. No, he wasn't a 2,000er.
He was really good.
2,000.
I don't know, but he was really good. On top of all that, Fred Taylor was the best teammate ever. He was just so good. Just such a great teammate.
Oh, we need to campaign to get him in Canton.
Why isn't he in Canton yet?
No doubt.
What's going on?
I don't know. It's like he went to the wrong school in college and went to the wrong team in the NFL.
He is Mr. Jaguar. There's not a better Jaguar than him.
But no one knew him because I don't even know if they were airing their games back then. They were so bad.
That's fair. So we just listed a whole bunch of fantastic teammates, and you probably have a myriad of plays. Is there any play that jumps out to you besides that initial 19-yarder to Richardson that you have a little more affinity for than others?
Well, everybody loves to talk about the play to Kwesi my sophomore year that kind of got us to the point of beating FSU, and they're number one in the country. If you can't play for it all, you always want to knock them off if they're number one. And man, there's so many things that run in my head about moments, but I mean that's probably the throw, the moment of a game that coming off a season where ups and downs, but we were able to end it well with that game. So that was probably the most special, memorable.
Well, Sid, damn it, you're right.
Oh, I know.
1846, I think.
The 2000 club's a little more elite than that, but much mad respect to Jamal. He was a little guy that packed a wallop.
Oh, man, no doubt.
That's why I could fix this in post. So
that's right.
Hey, so after UF, Doug, you signed with the Atlanta Falcons that we're talking about, and you have a nice 5-year NFL career. You throw 13 touchdowns. You keep all those balls?
No, I got some of them, but not a lot. No, it was good. The 4 years in Atlanta was great. Went to Tennessee after that. Got to play with probably the toughest competitor I've ever played with, which was Steve McNair. Yeah, and got to be really good friends with Mac that year. And then ended up going to Cleveland until week 3, short stint, and then 2 years with Cincy, and I got to meet still one of my best buddies now, Carson Palmer. He and his wife, or my wife and I, are closest friends, and his youngest is my godson. And so, I didn't get to play as long as I wanted to play. I had some injuries in my elbow and shoulder, kind of just said enough's enough. But at some point, it always ends. But it was good while it lasted.
Talked earlier about Michael Vick when you were in Atlanta. What was that like? What was that locker room like? Because he brought, the hype that he brought was a lot. How was that?
It's funny. So the Atlanta deal, I was went in my rookie year and left my rookie year, them being very high on me, like this, this could be our guy, right? So long story short, I get married on draft day, and draft day is when Atlanta takes Mike number one.
Oh,
So on the same day, on the same day. So just another chapter of the book. But fast forward, Mike was an exceptional teammate. I enjoyed my time with Mike. I was there with him for 3 years, backed him up. I was his two. I was able to. I feel like I was able to help Mike a lot. You could probably call him up and ask him, and he would probably concur. But it was fun. It was tough because the offense was totally designed for him.
that was my next question.
So, yeah.
It's different.
So
When you stepped in, it was a different scheme.
When I stepped in, it's you can't kind of reverse it and go in a different direction. So that was a tough deal, and it was and then throw all that in the mix of having Dan Reeves, who really didn't want to change in the beginning to go to an offense that fit Mike better. So then trying to unravel that was like, that wasn't going to happen. So, that was a tough deal, but it was, in a sense, it was still, I enjoyed my time in Atlanta. We had some good moments, playoff moments, just teammates I still talk to and have relationships with. And I think I was able to play behind, in my opinion, one of the most talented guys ever to play behind center.
No question.
From if you take everything in, did Mike process it as good as or anticipate? No, but he was a competitor. He was tough. He would put it all out there every week. Was not a prima donna. He did not buy into his own hype. Arm talent is unquestionable. I've never seen a guy as elusive and as fast on a football field to make other NFL defenders look slow. And it was just amazing to be able to watch. It really was. It was just to be a part of. It was just awesome.
Your time in Atlanta there, you had a lot of Gators there with you. You got Willie Jackson, Fred Weary, Reggie McGrew, Ellis Johnson. Yeah. Was there a special bond there? You got your Gator club in Georgia. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we kept riding that success train of Florida in the locker room. Probably won a lot of bets, right?
Probably.
On Saturdays, I got to meet Ellis Johnson. I always heard about Ellis. Ellis was before me.
Right.
And, the funny thing about Ellis was definitely afraid of getting on an airplane while he was at Florida. He would not get in an airplane to go to any away. So he rode with the equipment bus to away games. And that bus left the day before. So Ellis was always on that, like literally that, whatever that is, a U-Haul or what, that big single cab, whatever, that Ellis was in there. So, but fast forward, he went from that to then being a pilot. And he had his own. He had his own plane.
Way to overcome your fears. Plane. That's great.
Right? He had his own plane. He lived in outside of Indianapolis, and would fly home Sunday nights after the game. He had it worked in his contract, and would fly back Wednesday morning from Indianapolis on his own plane from a guy who would not get our team charters.
That's amazing.
How funny is that,
John? There's still hope for you.
Yeah.
So, but those kind of things is like those are the unspokens. The actual game's awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it's the other things that what makes it special, and that's what every guy will tell you.
Let's talk about one of those other things. 2007, you're inducted into the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame, along with Coach Galen Hall. Is that special for you?
It is special. Coach wanted to beat Georgia more than he wanted to beat any team.
Right.
He did. And as a team, we took great pride in beating Georgia every year, right? Well, we had one speed bump in the 4 years that I was there. But we took great pride in preparing for Georgia and beating Georgia and setting the tone against Georgia. So to be able to have the success that I had against Georgia and the stats I had against Georgia was definitely was special. It really was. It's cool. It's a cool fraternity to be a part of. My buddy and former running back Ernest Graham, he's getting inducted. Yep. And his son and my son actually play together on the same high school team as we sit right now.
Nice.
So yeah, Buell's High School, number 1 in the state. It's good stuff. But anyways,
nice.
So Ernest and I sit in the stands together every week, watch our sons play, and Ernest is getting inducted next week. So big congratulations to him. Super awesome.
Ernest and Joe Hayden, right?
I don't know who else. I just know Ernest.
Yeah, Joe Hayden
that's all.
is also.
Okay, awesome.
So next time you're sitting next to EG, you can pass along the information about this show because we've been trying to get him on and can't get a hold of him.
Ernest is an introvert, so I'll get him. I'll get him to do it.
Oh,
I'll get him to do it. So
yeah, we're big fans, So.
Oh, he's great. He's super guy.
So besides that induction, the question we do ask a lot of the Gator greats we have on is kind of looking back at your career. You know, you in particular near the top of all the passing records. What are you most proud of from your time in the orange and blue?
What am I most proud of? It's a good question. What am I most proud of? I would say collectively, I'm most proud of the relationships that I still have that came with the part. I'm proud of the fact of the way I handled the ups and downs and kept working. I think that's and anyone that plays the position, you could call them all. They'll relate to what I'm talking about. And the ones that couldn't left, or they transferred, or they bowed out, or they just crumbled. So I didn't let it crumble me. And I prepared every week, and I never, literally, I got carted off one game, and that was the Orange Bowl. So I played every week. I took every shot in the mouth. I kept getting up, and we won a bunch of games. And I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Great answer.
Very nice.
All right. So you're a successful businessman in your post-football life. Tell our friends of the show, what are you up to these days?
So when I retired from the NFL in what that would have been 2007, I targeted an insurance company. And in 2009, I came on board and finally got the deal done in 2013, purchased that company, and then I was acquired in 2019 by the largest privately owned insurance broker in the world, Hub International. And now I'm kind of holding the fort down here in their Gainesville office, and I'm doing exactly what I was doing, but now not as an owner. So, and I'm a stockholder in Hub International and a commercial insurance producer. So that's what I'm doing. I'm multiple properties. I'm very proud of my foundation that I started 20 years ago. We've raised, almost $3 million for the Boys and Girls Club. We did about a $600,000 renovation here 3 years ago for the club, putting new fields and lights in, and every year we eclipse 150,000 raised for the club. So it's, that's what I'm proud of. I've got 20. Well, I want to get this right because I'll get in trouble. So married 22 years to my best friend.
Nice.
I've got 2 awesome kids, and I mean that's we're here in Gainesville, and all is well.
So you mentioned your kids. Do they play sports? How old are they?
My daughter is a freshman in college. She's currently attending Santa Fe, and she's got the pathway to go to UF. She wants to be a Gator. That's what her goal was. And as you know, it's very tough to get into UF these days. So this will be her. She got accepted everywhere else. So this, besides the school she wanted to go to. So she's a Gator at heart. She bleeds it, and that's what she's going to end up being. It's just a different path. And my son's a sophomore at Buchholz High School. He's a starting quarterback. got a very, very bright future ahead of him. He's way further along than I was as a sophomore, so I'm very excited for
Is
him.
Florida talking to you guys yet, or
Multiple schools are.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So Buell's is number one in the state right now, and got a big game this week, and so it's been fun.
Are you coaching? Are you quarterback coaching?
I am not.
Nothing.
I am not. Ernest and I sit in the stands as dads because our kids get coached enough by us.
What's Ernest's kid doing? He's
Miles Graham is a 5-star
Oh, that's
linebacker.
right. What am I talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, Miles is and he is an absolute specimen, and better than that, he's a great human being. I mean, Ernest has done a fantastic job of raising Ernest and his wife, shall I say, Alicia, have done a fantastic job with Miles. He's at my house a bunch, and he's an unbelievable football player. Like, Florida better. They know what they got coming because he's everything and more.
That's exciting. Something to look forward to.
Yes.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Yep.
Doug, we usually end the show in a bit.
Okay.
And before we get to that, I have to correct myself. It wasn't Jamal Anderson. It was Jamal Lewis of
Big
the
difference.
Ravens that
Big difference.
rushed for 2,000.
Yeah.
Well,
Jamal Lewis out of Tennessee.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
I'm talking Jam. Jam is who I'm talking about. The Dirty Bird. The Dirty Bird.
The Dirty Bird.
All right, Doug. So we're going to end the show in a bit, and you're going to get a Mount Rushmore. And we're not just going to do Gator quarterbacks. The Mount Rushmore, or you get to pick, the Mount Rushmore of Florida Gators' biggest arms ever.
All right. Biggest arms ever.
Who you got?
Well,
of course, you are allowed to include yourself.
I would probably put myself probably at the top of that. I haven't seen anybody come yet to challenge that. After that, let me think. Man, I don't know I would say Rex probably. Now I'm talking about guys that played the game, not guys who showed up on campus and may be able to throw it 1,000 miles an hour and never played. Like, I'm talking about guys who played.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
So I would probably say Rex was behind that. Number 2. How many slots are we looking at?
4 in a Mount Rushmore.
4. Okay, sorry. That's right. I would say probably Eric Kresser.
Okay.
Would be 3, and I'll back that up. I would probably say AR maybe 3.
Okay.
And Kresser 4. Anthony Richardson had all the arm talent in the world. I don't think he could throw it those intermediates really. Like, he could throw a good deep ball, but that's why I probably put Rex ahead of him on the intermediate stuff. But so it's kind of what you're looking for. So I would probably say myself, Rex, AR, then Kresser as far as arm talents.
All right, Doug. Man, our QB1 from our time at UF.
Oh, yeah.
Honor and a pleasure to have you on with us. I'm so glad we got to do it and got it done.
Awesome.
Anytime, if we could help you out with the Boys and Girls Club, social media.
That'd be awesome.
Not a problem, man. Just send me a text or an email.
Cool.
We'd be more than happy to do it, man. Congratulations on your successful business career. And, all the best to, your future endeavors and your kids. And hopefully we'll see your son under center in the swamp sometime.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas. I enjoyed it. We'll hopefully that is the case. We'll see. Only time will tell.
All right, Doug.
Thank you. This was great.
Thanks so much.
So now we can officially fill out a lineup of All for the Gators guests to fill out a squad, because now we have a quarterback and we can put it together. So that was great.
And he was a good one.
Our quarterback.
No fullback yet.
You could, fit some guys in there. They could play fullback.
Yeah.
We got to get Billy Latsko on.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're talking.
Yeah. They'll work on that. Super producer.
Yeah. We'll see. Time for our 2 bits.
I got one. I really liked his insight to your question, John, about why there's been no quarterback baseball star. And his answer actually made a lot of sense. Like he said, when you're just playing a skill position, a corner, a receiver, and then you're running around in the outfield and it's just athleticism, it's not the same sort of work, the leadership, the plays, everything you have to do as the quarterback. So I guess that makes sense. It never even occurred to me, but, that coming from somebody who has excelled in both baseball and football, I thought that was a very interesting perspective from him.
You know, and the way he explained it made total sense. And it's probably the things that we don't think about because we weren't professional athletes, right?
Sure.
So we're just here asking the questions. But yeah, it makes total sense now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, you want me to go, Andy?
Sure. I think you're going to steal mine, but go ahead.
My 2 bits is going to be that I am really impressed with the character he showed when we were asking him about being rotated so much with Jesse Palmer. And even though when the chaos was going on, he might not have been happy with it, but the way he explained it and dealt with it and thinks back on it just really speaks to his character and his confidence that he had back then and as an athlete. And I was really, really impressed. It was not the answers that I was expecting, because as a fan, I was thinking the exact opposite. But he totally surprised me and impressed me with his answer on that one.
Yeah, you didn't take the one I was going to say. That was one of mine. I was thinking about that one too. But that wasn't the one I was going to go with. But mine's in a similar vein about his respect, and it was the respect that he talked about Fred Taylor. You know, how great of a running back he was. And, you know, we always talk about it. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But for the insight that he provided to us, that when he's in the league and he's going around to all these different teams and hearing from other players, offensive and defense, other coaches, defensive coordinators, and the respect that Fred Taylor got, you know, in the NFL, I think is something well deserved. And again, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. You know, he's a Hall of Famer and doesn't quite get that credit. And it was great to hear his perspective, obviously from a Gator, but also from, you know, what he experienced being in the NFL and hearing it, you know, from that side as well. So that was mine.
Yeah, his own running back, a guy who runs for 1,850 yards.
Jamal Anderson.
Almost 2,000 yards. Almost.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. A guy, and he said it right too. You're talking about, you know, Jamal Anderson, right? And he said it that his ego, you know, couldn't fit through the door, but he said how good Fred Taylor was. He gave him the respect.
He gave the credit where the credit was due.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Freddie T. One day we're gonna get him.
No, we're not.
Future friend of the show. Future NFL Hall of Famer and future friend of the show, Fred Taylor.
We're trying to get Eric Rett and we're trying to get EG. Okay,
I'm okay with
start there.
We need to go on a running back run.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple. We've had C4,
Chris Rainey.
No, we have. Oh, we've had some great ones. We need to go on a little run with all those guys you talked about. We got to go on a little run with those 3. It'd be good. But no, we've had great running backs. Yeah.
All right. Well,
our quarterback delivered it.
Very good. He was great. He was great.
Until further notice, he's our quarterback.
He's our quarterback. That's right.
The show.
Consider that a completion.
That's the best you got, Sid.
It's late. I'm done.
All right, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure once again. Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.